In this lesson, I'm going to go over the code for writing a median calculator. This is the exercise from the previous lesson. So here we have the calculate median function. So we're defining it here. And the argument that it accepts is this numbers variable. And so what this function does is it first off sorts the numbers in the numbers list. So it will sort them from smallest to largest in ascending order. Now here we have another variable, and this variable, all it does is it uses this function called length. Okay, so this function is used to determine how many items there are in a list. So numbers is a list. And so for example, let's say we had these numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 numbers here. So if this was a list of numbers, then the value stored in n would be 8. So what this function does is it first checks if n, when it's divided by 2, if we get a remainder of 0. Okay, so that's what this is doing. The modulo operator is being used here, and it gives a remainder of 0, which tells us that there's an even number of numbers in the list. So in that case, if there's an even number of numbers in the list, in order to calculate the median, we need to figure out what the two numbers are in the middle, the two middle numbers. And so the way that we do that is we take n divided by 2 and subtract 1. Okay, so in this example, n would be 8. Okay, if we divide 8 by 2, we get 4. Now, if we take 4 and subtract 1, we get 3. Okay, so middle 1 is storing the value 3. Okay, that's the value that is being stored in this variable. Now, the variable middle 2, this is just going to store the value of 4 because it's 8 divided by 2. Now, these variables are actually going to be used as indices in the list. Okay? And numbers in the list or items in the list, the indices start at 0. So the first number or item in the list has an index of 0, the second one has an index of 1, and so on. So if there were 8 numbers, then the 8th number actually has an index of 7. Okay, so middle 1 stores a value of 3, middle 2 stores a value of 4. And so now in order to calculate the median, we take the third number, okay, or actually the number with index 3, which is actually the 4th number. Okay, so in this case, it would be this number 4 here if it was this example. So index 3 actually means the 4th number in the list. And then we add the number that has index number 4. Yeah, so this would be index number 3, and this is not index number 4. So index number 4, so that is actually the 5th number in the list. Okay, so we add the 4th number in the list and the 5th number in the list and divide by 2. And that gives us the median. Okay, so that is the way of finding the median if there is an even number of numbers. The two middle numbers, when the numbers are ordered from least to greatest, are averaged. Now, if there isn't an even number of numbers, and instead we have an odd number, so we have this else statement, then there's only one number in the middle. Okay, and that middle number, to find it, we would take n, which let's say it's, let's say in our example, we have now 7 numbers. Okay, from 1 to 7. It would be 7 divided by 2. So int and n over 2 here. So if in this example, let's say we have 7 numbers and n would be 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. Now, this function here, int, actually always rounds down. Okay, so if it's 0.5, it will round down. Okay, now if it was 0.6, it would round up. So we can check that though. Okay, so if we look at something like int, let's say we had 3.6. It actually always, all it really does is it actually just takes the first digit. Okay, so it always just takes the first digit. Even if we had int 4.9, it just takes the 4, interestingly enough. Okay, so it always rounds down. And so that means that here, if we have 3.5, that's actually just 3. Okay. Now, so it's index 3 that's being stored in this variable middle. Okay. So now we have numbers. So basically the number with the third index, that would be the number 4 here. Okay. This is the number with 0th index, first index, second, and then third index. So it would be this number, and we can clearly see that it's the middle number that we see here. Okay, and so then whatever is stored in the median variable is returned by this function. Now there's also a main function as well. And so the main function here is used to ask the user for input. Okay, so we ask the user how many numbers they want to enter. Okay, so that's the question here. How many numbers do you want to enter? And then whatever count number that they enter gets stored in the count variable. We initialize an empty list to store the numbers. So numbers equals, and then we got square brackets here, opening and closing. That's how we initialize an empty list. Now we have a loop. Okay, now we're going to use a for loop in order to collect the numbers one by one from the user. And we are collecting floating point numbers, so the user can enter either integer values or decimal values. And so as the user enters these numbers, they're added to the numbers list. That's what this append function does, and we've seen it before in the past. Finally, we call on the calculate median function from up here. Okay, and so this code runs. The median is calculated, and then finally it's printed out here. Okay, and now this is just this is needed whenever there's a main function where a user is repeatedly asked for input. For that to happen, this is always required in any program where there's the user is required to repeatedly enter values in. So this if name is equivalent to this main with the underscores, and then main with parentheses. So then, yeah, this is a code walkthrough. So it explains this code in even more detail than what I explained. So to run the program, you want to save it to a file, for example, median underscore calculator.py, and execute it in a Python environment. So like the IZLE environment or Replit or some other environment like Jupyter Notebook. So the user will be prompted to enter the number of values they want to input, followed by each value, and then the median will be calculated and displayed. So let's actually look at this program, how it runs. So I'm going to open it here, median calculator, and we can see that we have our the definitions for these two functions, the calculate median function, along with the main function that asks the user for input. And so let's try running this. And we will use the same example as before. So let's do I'm gonna go with 1. So how many numbers? I'm gonna go with 8 numbers. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what we can see are the middle two numbers are average, 4 and 5, to get 4.5. Now, say I want to run this again. So I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to close this. I'm going to run this. And let's now try 7 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we get the number 4. Notice that we get a floating point number here. Exactly 4. Now this should still work even if we use floating point numbers. The program should still run. Okay, so thank you for watching this video lesson. Take care for now.